So, welcome. I'm Sammy Aaron with the Resilient Activist, and I want to welcome Staci Cross with Enjoy Pure Food and Drink to be our guest today, just exploring how she would define herself as a visionary activist and what that has meant to her as she brought to the light of day this amazing restaurant full of healthy, nutritious, organic, sustainable food with glorious colors and everything that she does. And welcome, Staci. How are you?
Hi, Sammy. I'm great, thank you. So honored to be here.
Yeah.
Talk about all the wonderful things that you're involved in, and how we all participate in the big vision of, just making it a more sustainable world and
Yeah.
healthier world, first of
Mm-hmm.
all. And I
Yeah.
apologize that there's going to be a little beeping in the background. I apologize. I'm at my restaurant, and there's a little bit of beeping that comes when people come in and out the door. So I apologize for that ahead of time.
Okay. We'll just ignore it.
Okay.
So why don't we just start off? I'll let you introduce yourself, whatever's bubbling up that you want to talk about, your background, your history, family, friends, whatever.
Yeah. So I opened the doors to Enjoy Pure Food and Drink about 4.5 years ago. And I never once thought I would be a restaurateur. It was more about providing a sanctuary type of an environment for lifting people up, for just being wholesome and pure. And it's funny, I had all of these ideas about creating the culture and the environment to really, nourish people. And then, oh yeah, we'll serve them some amazing, delicious food for their body that will, optimize them at their highest potential, for their day. And it took me a while I think I was 6 months into the restaurant when somebody said, how does it feel to own a restaurant? And I realized, I guess I do own a restaurant, but to me, it was always like a wellness journey. It was a healing journey for others. It was like a place to heal and healing from the purity of what we offered. And so anyway, just stepping back from that, just kind of like going backwards. I was the most far removed from this world. In my first career, I was in television advertising for CBS for a long time. And then I went and started my own company, and it was then that I had the entrepreneurial spirit that I was making a difference. I won't get into what we did, but it was, helping others. It was not environmentally related or in that regard, but it was educationally related. And at that point, I was traveling around to about 50 cities a year for about 4 or 5 years, always on the road. And I was vegan at the time, and I'm still a little bit vegan, but just really, really believing that how you nourish your body is the potential that you can create in the world for your life. And I still believe that, and I still founded Enjoy on that belief. And in order to keep going, obviously that's a stressful life, traveling that much.
Sure.
You could get really run down, you could get sick, but I was trying not to get sick and not get run down and stay as high energy as I could. And I really felt food had a lot to do with it. Of course, it wasn't a very sustainable existence, but and so it was then traveling to all around the country that I realized that, wow, we're not in great shape with the food options that are out there for Americans, for our country. We've come a long way since this was 10 years ago. We've come a long way in our culture and offering healthier options that you can get. But really 10 years ago, it was hard to find. I would find every Whole Foods in every city I went to, and that was pretty much the go-to. And I love the way Whole Foods made me feel when I walked in. It felt organic. It felt high quality, high vibration. It just felt nurturing, and I felt like, oh, it felt so good being in there. So fast forward a few years, I kind of got a download of this concept on how to provide more of a healing center for people to go to in their day And it was to nourish people, to have all over the country, to have places where people could go and be nourished, and not only in their body, but like their, I had some other ideas about like a meeting place that was more nourishing for business, and kind of an unplug place for that was, like help people, kind of gather their energy for that day, and, so they could go back and, resume their day. But that hasn't flourished yet. But so that was the original vision. But I had that while just noticing the need around the country. And so then eventually I said, I think it's time that I do that, because that's my calling to serve, and how I'm going to serve this world. I mean, up to that point, I was helping with my other company, people kind of do their careers in order to make money and to support their family. And then purpose becomes more important, and fulfilling the reason why you're here in this world, it becomes more important. I think maybe as you get older, and also if that light goes on, sometimes it doesn't go on for everyone, and so I just kind of switched the light switch into like kind of it's all about me to it's all about everyone else. And it was a moment of, I'm going to be of service, and I've never gone back, obviously, and I won't. It's just, I think it's a journey that people that go on, I've seen it time and time again. It's when you're ready to let go, and you've done the healing work, you've done all of that for your own personal growth, and you're ready to truly step into service. And that's really where I am and where I was when I started Enjoy. It was from that place. So it's always from that place, and it's always from that place to serve our customers. And what we do at Enjoy, do you want me to talk about kind of what we do? Or
yeah, I was going to ask you, what is the vision? And obviously I've been in there and I know how it makes me feel, and seeing it from this higher perspective. But I want to hear it from you. Like what is different about Enjoy that you created that?
So it's multifaceted, but in terms of our conversation, I'll touch on everything. But first of all, it was about really high nutritionally dense food, clean, or organic, intentionally sourced food. We want to know where every ingredient comes from, and is it high quality? Is it high vibration? Is it good, high standards, meaning for the food quality, for the environment. For instance, we do serve salmon here, but I would only serve sustainably grown, farmed, and wild caught salmon, where I think if you go to most restaurants, it's going to be farm raised, and it's a cost issue for them. We only serve organic eggs. Our produce is almost all organic, and it just, when it has to be, we go way beyond the dirty dozen. I don't know if everyone knows what that is, but
from environmental working groups.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's just everything we do, like all of our flours or oils, everything we can do just so that the intention is there, so that when we make it and when we serve it and when our customers eat it, they are feeling the high vibration of that food, and then that goes into their body and they become lighter and more able to do what they're here to do. So that's it from a food standpoint. Equal to that, we have a whole list of things of why we are environmentally conscious. And this was always important to me. So we compost all of our food scraps and all of our juice pulp and all of our paper goods. We compost all of that. We work with Missouri Organic, and they pick up twice a week from us, which is, so great that they have that service. Yeah. All of our paper, all of our to-go containers are compostable and recyclable, of course. And I just can't believe anybody that would use styrofoam to this day, So, and then all of our meats are sourced, as I mentioned, in regards to what's best for the environment. we have so many plants. I think we have about 100 plants in our dining room, just to bring in that oxygen and to bring in that life and to touch nature. So I don't know why that was important to me. And I was saying earlier that I don't think, I never really understood, I don't know where that came from, but I just knew it was the right thing to do, like way back when, to use compostable and recyclable goods. And so we do that. We do a host of other things. And then also the culture of my staff is equal to the food that we serve, in my opinion, as a business owner. So it's really important that, and I understand that this is not doing restaurant as usual. And I learned this the hard way, but we have made inroads and we're doing great. So we're all about having a conscious employee culture. And when we say conscious, we're aware of being kind to others. We're aware of talking kindly, of communicating directly and maturely. And, you know, I ask a lot of my employees that other restaurants wouldn't ask of them, and just to be good people and great to the customer and to serve from the heart, you know, so serving from the heart, really feeling that service in order to make that customer's day even better. These are messages that I have talked about for years. And some people aren't on that bandwagon, so they don't last very long. And some people are, and I have a very, very solid tenured staff that has been here for years and years. And they're so like happy and so wonderful. And so I'm so grateful, because it wasn't that way at the beginning. So culture is important. That really seeps into like the whole consciousness and the energy field of the restaurant. And that goes into the assimilation of nutrition as a customer when you're eating the food. Like, what is that energy field? What is that container? The container is love. That container is care and appreciation and gratitude. So we try to create, you know, we try to be very conscious of that container that customers walk into. And I think that that is part of activism, because it's not common in the restaurant industry, but it's very important if you are, again, wanting to have that great respite in your day and also assimilate the nutrition in its highest form, which I believe goes hand in hand. I think if you're in an agitated environment, you're not going to maybe assimilate the nutrition quite as well. So it's all the behind the scenes things that no, we don't talk about except now. And then when I'm training employees and things like that, or our staff meetings, you know. So.
Wow, this is amazing. So I'd like you, if you're willing, to clarify two comments that you made. One is that a number of years ago, you had a download. Like, yes, what does that mean? How do you describe that, if you're willing? And then the other phrase you used a couple times was high vibration. So how do you know, what does that mean? Do you have a scale, you know, that you measure it? How do you define food that you've sourced and food that's prepared in a certain way and the offering? How do you explain to yourself, this feels like high vibration food and a meal that fits the definition, and this does not? Like, how do you, where do you come from with that? And they may be an answer to the same question. I don't know.
Okay, so I'll talk about the download first.
Okay.
That's probably an easier
Sure.
easier question. So I actually was working kind of on another project, and it was 5 o'clock on a Monday. Sudden, I was in a quiet moment, and I just got this huge like rush of, I got this huge download in white light, this huge flash of white light, and it said the name of the company, and I saw it laid out, like everything laid out, and I saw a map of the United States, and I saw 250 little dots on this, and I felt it. I felt what we were supposed to be doing. I felt the vibration. I felt the high energy. I felt the high intention, the love, the way it would heal. that maybe I needed at the time.
Sure.
And I know that other people, you know, would need as well. Just being in that corporate world, kind of drained and doing a little bit of soulless work, you know, like how do I lift myself up out of that drudgery kind of thing. But that's not what the download was about. The download just happened. And I was like, what was that? And I thought what it was just the culmination of all the passions I had experienced pretty much in the last 20 years. Before that, I've always been very health conscious. I've always been searching. And maybe it all just came together about what that would look like in one little, you know, like ball. And I kind of felt like it was given to me, but it could have been given to me from my higher self, or, you know, and I said, well, okay, that's exciting. That was cool. I want to do that. And then but of course it was the farthest thing that I knew how to do. I didn't know how to do I don't know how to do restaurant or, you know, what have you, or long story short, it probably took, I didn't even move on it. I wrote it all down as fast as I could. It was about 5 pages. And then I gave it to my husband and he said, I love it. I support you and let's do it. And I didn't actually move on it for about 5 months because you should do that. You should do that. And so I was encouraged. He encouraged me. And I guess I felt like maybe I was at the point where, I need to go get a real job. And I felt a little guilty about indulging this passion. And then and plus all the work I didn't, you know, but I just said, no, this is what I've got to do. And so then, you know, I had to research all of that, research the whole industry, and it took years to put together. And I raised money from investors, and that took a couple of years, and, you know, all of that. So, but also at the time I was, well, actually it was soon after that I became a prayer chaplain. And so when I say high vibration, you know, you can I think there's I've never been asked to explain high vibration before, but you can definitely feel it. You know, it feels quality. It feels full. It feels real. It feels vibrant. It feels that the nature is intact, like full-bodied God force nature is intact, is there. It feels very vibrant and very vital. And compared to like a hamburger, which doesn't feel that way to me, or, you know, like a big salad with lots of vegetables, tons of vegetables from the earth, you know, just colorful and just alive. So there is that, if I could draw that comparison, you know. And I've always felt like, you know, just from experience, eating that way, you do feel better. You do feel more vibrant and vital.
Yeah.
So I think the whole, I guess the spiritual aspect of it, I don't know if that, just feeling that healing part of the healing factor of healthy food. And I think it's healing on, you know, your body, and it's also healing at your soul level.
Yeah.
Compared to eating hamburgers and French fries all day, you know. So
yeah, absolutely. And so talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about how long it took to make this happen. So, you know, I think a lot of people who have a vision, they just want to get it done. And there's this sense of urgency and checklists and things that have to happen by such and such a date. And I know a lot of times starting a new business, especially for-profit, well, for-profit or nonprofit, either way, you have business plans, you have, you know, your 1-year plan, your 3-year plan, your, you know, your budget forecasting, and all these things that we're told you have to have in order to actually make something come to life. And so So I just want to hear from your perspective. You know, it took obviously a number of years and a number of different avenues and people you had to connect with. How did all that feel during that time after the download?
Thank you for that question. The download was in October of 2010. We opened the doors in April of 2016. It's a
6
long
years.
time.
Yeah.
But kind of flew by. But like I said, I didn't know the industry, and I had to start from scratch, completely start from scratch. I had to learn, I had to research, I went to conferences. Well, I ended up writing to raise money. I raised $600,000 to raise money with a security with the SEC for stock. You have to have an offering. It has to be a private placement memorandum. You have to have full disclosures of the risk and all that. So you have to put together that PPM, that private placement memorandum. Mine was this thick, and it took years to put together. So just all this, why do we need, why, tons of research on why this is a good idea. Mm-hmm. Why is it the right time? What are the trends? Why do you think people would want to eat at your restaurant, or why do you use your product or use your service? What are the reasons why? What are the factors? What is the climate? What's the economic climate? All that. So it took a while to write that, and then to once I had that offering, it took. I was raising a lot more money to do the full blown idea that I thought of, with the meat space and the unplugged space and the. Yeah. And that wasn't flying. So I scrapped that, and I kind of redid my whole off PPM, and raised less money and only focused on the food. And at that point, it kind of started picking up speed, like from an investor standpoint. I just felt like I had been, a little bit more streamlined. So there were a lot of pivots that I kind of made a little bit. It was harder to make pivots at that time because I was really, bound and determined. So that's the thing. You learn a lot when you just learn a lot about if it doesn't work. I learned a lot about if it's not working, there's got to be a reason. So let go of the resistance. And as soon as you let go and truly let go, something better will come forward. And sometimes that day. So that happened to me. And, it was remarkable.
Do you have an example? Yeah. Do you have an example of that you can think of?
Yeah, I think it was when I had beat my head up against the wall trying to raise money I was going to raise a little over $1 million for the big concept. Mm-hmm. And it was May, and my son was going off to college. And I said, I need to bring in some money. My son's going to college. I need to get a paycheck going here I've got a long haul here, and I had another one in, high school. I said, let's get off. And so I said, forget it. And I just threw everything in my attic. And I was very sad, but I was mad. I was mad that it didn't happen. I was mad. And literally that day I got a call from somebody that I talked to. And that's when he said, you should probably just work on the restaurant piece, and I can help you with that. Okay. So we met that next day, and it was off and running. And then I really, truly did let go. I really, truly let go. And by letting go, you allow the universe to come in and say, okay, this is really what is going to be the right direction for this venture. Sometimes that was the big learning piece. Thinking that it's not all about what's in my head, just kind of let it flow. And that's part of learning. That's a learning piece for life in other areas, to release things that are not happening, and to allow what is supposed to happen. Yeah. And that it always, and that another situation is with the name. This is the great story about release. The name was Nourish for 5 years, for 5.5 years. Mm-hmm. I thought of it was Nourish. Mm-hmm. All my offerings, all my documents were Nourish. We were opening in April, and in February, I was told I couldn't use the name Nourish because of a trademark issue.
Oh my gosh.
And I about had a heart attack, and I was
Mhm.
thinking, what, you know, and I went through this incredible grieving process. Like, you know, I grief, true grief about losing that name because I had been my identity and my purpose. And then I learned, I said, okay, there's got to be a reason this is happening. And I'm going to just allow it. I'm going to believe that there's a reason this is happening. And within a month, we came up with the name Enjoy Pure Food and Drink. And I realized that it was perfect because joy was really the state that I was seeing for my customers once they were nourished. And that's the state I saw them in. And so it was absolutely perfect. But if I would have fought it, that would not have been good.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I love the way that you're so kind of physical with how it all came together, you know. I just
Yeah.
need to interject. There's someone with a leaf blower outside my window, so I'm just gonna do my best here with the sounds. But
I can't hear it.
okay, good. I don't know if it's on the recording or not, but so other than the time delay and changing the name and you know some of the other things, having to learn about the business in the first place, were there any other difficulties that that had a big impact, or anything that you really had to work around, or um, shift perspective, or anything like that?
Well, the first year is always tough in a business because you are learning so much about what it takes for that business to be successful. What do the customers want? What's the, you know, have you done your prices right and all of that? And how do you get customers, you know, the marketing, that's all. There's a lot of learning that happens with any business in the first year or two. It's never easy. It's always, you're always adjusting. And I think it was the piece I talked about earlier with the employees, just them being such a new restaurant. We didn't have any history. We didn't have any, there wasn't a great demand to work at Enjoy at that time. We got who we got. And again, another learning experience. A year later, I had this very toxic employee staff. And I said, this is not what we're about. Like, we're creating this bad energy, and this is so offensive to me, you know? And I put my foot down and I said, this is what we're about, you know? So that to me was like the biggest learning experience. And what I did at that point was I just took control. I said, I'm not allowing this to happen. You know, this gossip or this bad talking or whatever, you know, and that's just what they were kind of used to working at other restaurants. And so since then, anyway, it's a long story, but I'm working on a piece that can be used at all restaurants. It's called creating a conscious culture model for the restaurant industry. So I'm creating a conscious culture model for the restaurant industry. And I've actually created it, and we implement it here at Enjoy, but I'm working on actually practical pieces that other restaurants that are kind of new to this idea can implement to get the ball rolling. I think that was the biggest surprise for me, and I didn't anticipate it or expect it at all. Like, I had no idea that people could act like that, because I came from a very congenial corporate world, you know, where people have to act a certain way. And I don't mean to say this badly, but it's just the way it is. And that's just the fact. And so it's an industry that needs some healing.
Yeah. You know? And I think it's not just that industry. You know, I think we get into that a lot with social media, with politics, with all kinds of things happening there. There isn't always this intention to come from a place of love and respect and honoring, even when there's disagreement. You know, there's going to be disagreement if you're working with humans, right? But there's ways to handle that promote more unity, kindness, understanding, right? And
Mhm.
so what will your conscious culture model be? Is it a program? Is it a book? Do you
It's
know
a
how you're going to
program.
offer it? It's a program.
It's like a program. It's like kind of like a manual. Um, it is pretty much written already, and I'm thinking about as soon as like COVID's over, the pandemic is over, I can think about doing other things
Mm-hmm.
besides day to day, like
Yeah,
pivoting. I'm also, so I really want to find a platform to spread, to help teach this
mm-hmm.
on a local level and maybe on a national level. There's the National Restaurant Association. They have a conference, a huge conference in Chicago every May. They won't have it this year, but probably maybe next year. Maybe I'll be ready to go and have a little booth or something, or talk to
Sure.
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I mean, we are starting to work on franchising Enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And that is another major focus. I mean, I will be focused on that until I retire, you know.
And that was from your original download. You knew
Yeah.
that at the time, because you saw it on the map, you said,
Uh-huh.
that
Right.
you could see these 250 locations.
Right. So I hold on
Yeah.
to that vision.
Mm-hmm.
It's very real. It's a very real
Mm-hmm.
vision. And I know that anything is possible.
Yeah.
So it certainly is possible. Um, I think just because we did expand, it's taken a little bit longer. We've been open 4.5 years. We did expand our current space by 3 times,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
then COVID happened. So we've had a few delays that are understandable. And I'm not trying to get wrapped up in the timeline too much, knowing that things happen when they're supposed to happen. So I'm trying to hold on to that because I do get a little anxious, or not anxious, impatient. This pandemic has made us all a little more patient, I think.
Sure. Yeah. So let's shift gears just a little bit. And you touched a little bit on how many plants you have
Yes.
in the restaurant and where you source your food and how it feels. And I would like you to, if you could just take a moment and think about your personal connection to nature, to the natural world, to the out of doors, to because that's basically you're bringing that in, not just to the environment, but into our bodies. And just whatever comes to you, like what is your inspiration out in nature, or an experience that you've had, or a place that's your go-to place for stress relief, or whatever, just your relationship with nature.
Well, always, I've always gone to nature for renewal
Mm-hmm.
and to be fed and to be renewed. Um, it's I'm kind of more an introvert empath person. I don't know if that particular type of person naturally is drawn to being outdoors, being in nature. I know I've seen it with some people. I've always been drawn to water in the forest, and I grew up at a lake, and since I was 4 years old, and before that, I lived on the Pacific Ocean, and I was always around water. We played in the woods all the time. It just felt so right. It just felt so natural to be a part of the earth, and it still does. So I still live at that lake, and I am on I'm on walking trails. I'm hiking through the walking trails in the forest at least 4 times a week. Like
Mm.
I I just like you get that forest bath. They call it that forest bath,
Uh-huh. Yeah,
and I do it
it's therapy. Yeah.
now. The therapy. I ground on the ground my energy to the earth, and really try to ground, and then really feel like really become part of my surroundings. I take my dog, and we have a good old time going on the trails, and then I just feel so wonderful. I just like so healing. And what does it heal? It just heals all of the maybe the energy that we're bombarded with throughout our day. I've got all the beeping, I've got the all the electronics, the
Yeah.
cell phones, computers, cars, electricity, everything around us is bombarding us with frequency. And when you're in nature, it just kind of defrags all of that.
Right.
And to me, I think that just feels amazing. I feel like that is our natural state.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of sad that, as humans, we may go further and further from that natural state as time goes on, but we just have to remember that we are from the earth. We are from the earth. We're not from a computer.
Right. Yeah.
So
And not
feels
just the technology, but you have payroll and payroll taxes, and you have scheduling and hours, and like you said, personalities, and then you have a coronavirus on top of all that.
Yeah, just the operations and
all
the mental. There's a lot of mental pieces. But that's, again, is part of managing, being a business owner, and really trying to just trust. You have good people, and then you begin to trust, and then you can release some of that. It's not good to take on all that because it's very draining. It's not very unhealthy to take that on forever. You got to, release, trust in your employees, trust in the processes you've set up. And that's hard to do sometimes. It's hard to do.
Sure.
But again, self-care is really important. And, walking in the forest is part of my self-care. Another thing is being on the lake. I love looking at the water every day. And is there another part of your question about being in nature?
No, just whatever calls to you.
Yeah, just walking.
So let me ask you this: if you could give advice to someone who's had a download or of some sort, of any sort, that just feels really right, a really healing, uplifting idea, what advice would you give them? Is there any guidance that you would like to offer?
Well, what I would say is, if it feels right, then you will be helped in how to get it done. If it really feels like this is what you're supposed to do, but you don't know how to start, trust that all the right people and things will come to you to help you. Now, besides that, what can you actively do? Definitely. I mean, like, as you said before, you just really need to write it all down. Like if you have a business plan, write down, like, there's all components of a business plan. Like, what is the purpose of this venture? Who does it serve? Who's the target audience? Is there revenue? Like, where do you get the where does the revenue come from in order to sustain any employees or services and products that you have to buy for your venture? How will you make money? How will you spend money? And why is this something that people will want? So, I mean, there's all components of a business plan. You can look up that on the internet, I'm sure.
Right.
Those are the pieces. But I would also say, get after it. Just don't put it off. Why would you put it off?
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, you might regret it. And I didn't want to regret. I didn't want to live in regret. I didn't want to think, oh, I could have been, I could have done that. It would have made me really happy, but I didn't have the guts, or I don't know, doubt. Get rid of self-doubt. Just, if it's yours to do, then get rid of self-doubt.
Yeah. So how do you get rid of self-doubt? So when you didn't know anything about the restaurant business, I'm sure there was a moment, especially when you threw it all up in the attic, where you're like, this isn't right for me, or I'm not right for it, or whatever, like what did you do to shift that self-doubt?
Well, I never had self-doubt until that moment, that attic moment. I always felt like I could do I could do anything. I mean, I really believe that you could do anything in life. And if you believe that, you will do it. But when I threw it up in the attic, I think it was frustration. That release of frustration was the release to all the parameters I had forced on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had forced all these things on it, and it was strangled. So it wasn't able to flourish. So I think by me, so it wasn't about a self-doubt. It wasn't so much a self-doubt at that moment. It was a release of energy when I let that go. I didn't realize at the time, I didn't doubt myself. I was just angry, that it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
I did wonder, like, gosh, I really thought it. So it didn't have to last very long, thank goodness. But I think I don't know, self-doubt is to not have self-doubt has a lot to do with just how you feel about yourself, maybe. I'm not really sure. Just on how confident you are in what you're here to do, how much purpose is behind it,
Yeah.
how much drive you have, how much drive is a key part of making things happen. And
Wow.
so there's everyone is so different. It's hard to translate, like where people are at any given time. It's a matter of just knowing that I had no doubt, like, this is what I should have been doing. I just knew it was going to take a while to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the I did have the luxury of time in that time of my life. I wouldn't have had that like 10 years before, 15 years before. I never would have had that time. I had to be a breadwinner with my husband and raise 2 little kids. I didn't have the luxury of that. When I say luxury, I mean, it was a true luxury to be able to spend time and develop that. But that's another thing, like where you are in life, how much time you're able to give something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, I know you've been, I mean, I use the term visionary activist because, just in talking with you, and we don't know each other well, but the few times that we've met, I just feel that visionary in you. It's like you just operate from this expansion and from this kind of intuition and perception, and and it's just this interesting personality trait. And then you just go and make it happen. Then you go do the business plan, and you go get the funding, and you go, all of these other things, it feels like fall into place because you've embraced the vision. Does that feel like a truth for you?
Yes, first of all, thank you. And yes, it does feel right. It feels the vision is everything, the vision. And I love that you are talking about being a visionary activist, because if you have a vision, really, there's nothing that can deter you. You can fall, but most of the time, if you have a vision, if it's guiding you, you will get back up and point yourself back in that direction. And that's so exciting. Like, I wish everybody could live with vision and purpose, like I'm sure everybody does, but maybe it's just like doubt, or I'm not sure like what I'm here to do and all that. And it's just wonderful when you can find it. So when you do find it, it's like makes life so exciting.
Yeah. And you just know it. You're just like, oh, I'm doing the right thing. Or you have those crazy coincidences and synchronicities, like the phone call you got the same day you had your conversation up in the attic with yourself. It's like, wow, this is interesting. And it's a little confirming, there's these confirming messages, I think, if we're open to them, where we can say, yeah.
And I think the word activist is also, you could also say, there's another word, change maker, or visionary is kind of the same thing. To be visionary, you're still a change, you're also a change maker. But what you're doing is you're visioning something that is a little radical, like maybe hasn't been done or hasn't been done in this way. And you are shaking it up. So there's going to be doubters out there. They're like, well, that hasn't been done, or that's not done, or we don't do it that way, or people that aren't as comfortable with change, or comfortable seeing, or aren't as visionary. They don't see visions like you do.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So just, I would say to anyone out there that has a vision that you're going to run into those people. And if you have that vision, just the fact that you have a vision, you are seeing a changed world. You are
Wow.
seeing a world. Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes hand in hand. So it's activism. It's you're
Mm-hmm.
activating change with confidence and purpose.
They have to quote you on some of this.
Okay.
This
I
is
know.
great. Oh, well, Staci, I think this has been wonderful. I'll have you, we'll have a little bio and how people can contact you, and
Okay.
definitely about enjoy pure food and drink for sure. And anything else that you feel like you want to just get out, just put out there into the ethers.
There's a part of me that says, well, there's just a little part of me right now that is reflecting on the situation that we're all in with the world, that feels like it's a little bit of a, what do you call that? Like we're on a pause a little bit, like, oh, I can't do that because we're in COVID, or, I'll wait till COVID's over. I kind of said that myself. And that could be because people aren't ready to invest, but there are people. I mean, I don't think we should let that stop us from moving forward if it feels right. If it feels like you're butting up against something, then it doesn't feel right. Then maybe it's not right. And then maybe it's not the time. But I also don't want it to be an excuse not to move forward,
Wow. Great words of wisdom. Just exactly that. Yeah, your situation doesn't have to define anything that you choose to do. You can take your situation and still find the way. I mean, visionary activist piece just bubbled out of me last month, and I'm, sitting at home, and obviously it's been building through the Resilient Activist organization for these couple of years, but hadn't really clarified itself until the middle of October. And that as soon as I saw it, it had my download. As soon as I had my download, right? Very clear download. And I had those words, visionary activist. It was like, oh, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And it's just all fallen into place in the middle of coronavirus. So I'm with you,
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Thank you. Well, it's wonderful, Sammy, what you're doing. And you are an incredible visionary. Oh my gosh. So this has been so fun too.
It has. Thank you so much, Staci. And we'll get it posted up there. And I don't know, just grateful for all you do and for all that you give and bringing good stuff to the world.
Grateful for you, Sammy. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.